we are already a bit late for the session. Without further ado, I would like to ask sir to please start his session.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Kansal. I'm working as professor in the Department of Water Resource Development and Management, IHET. I have been working in this institute from 2001, and before that I was at Delhi College of Engineering, now which is known as the DTU, Delhi Technical University, from 91 to 2001. Before that, for small duration, I was at National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee, and before that I was at IIT Delhi and NIT. So this is my brief journey and background. I have been working in the area of the hydropower system planning, then the environmental impacts or the environmental effects, and then thereafter the sustainable development, and also working in the area of the urban water systems and its sustainability, particularly the drinking water systems, the urban drainage systems, the urban flooding aspects, and so on. So today, in this, we shall be talking about the e-flow assessment for environmental sustainability of the hydropower projects. So the keywords here are: one is the sustainability. What we mean by the sustainability aspect. Then the environmental sustainability, because for any hydropower project or any project, the environmental aspect is very important, and particularly for the water resources project, the environmental sustainability is closely associated with the e-flow assessment. Environmental flow, nowadays we are calling it as the ecological flow of the requirement. As we know that the different type of the hydropower projects can be there, the storage-based power plants can be there, run-of-the-river schemes can be there, or pump storage schemes can be there. So each of that has the different the aspects and the different flow speed, as well as the different advantages, as well as the limitations of the various projects. So keeping that thing in mind, the storage-based plant, as you see just adjacent to your location, the heavy hydropower plants, but the storage power plants require the e-flow at the downstream. In most of the cases, you are having the benefits to the downstream in terms of the power generation and those things, but the water logging aspects and the water submergence can be on the upstream side, and then the certain minimum flow is required at the downstream. That also is important. Okay. If we release more water, then it is at the cost of the power, because you cannot generate power for longer time. But if you are storing more water and not releasing at the downstream, then the aquatic life at the downstream will get affected. So one has to make the compromise between the two. So these are some of the aspects which we should keep in mind while dealing with the environmental sustainability. So with that background, let's begin with some of the issues. The first thing is, when we are talking about the sustainable development, it is a general slide. We should know about the various sustainable development goals. In fact, in 2015, the group of number of countries in the world, they defined that the sustainable development of the society should cover these 17 sustainable development goals. And if you notice these sustainable development goals, almost all the goals has one way or the other connected with water. Right? Like if I discuss with this, the first one is the no poverty, right? That also will be connected with the water, like zero hunger, or the little bit issue of health and well-being issues are there, or the gender equity is there, or the quality education is there, clean water and sanitation, the clean energy, like that. All those goals are related with the water. Okay, and the particularly the clean water and sanitation, that is the sustainable goal 6, or the clean energy like the 7th goal, that also is very important. The sustainable cities and communities is the 11th, and so on. So keeping those sustainable development goals, the Government of India has also kept these issues in mind, and various water related the departments and the missions and abhiyans have been started by the Government of India. Like some of the famous are the Jal Jeevan Mission for Har Ghar Ko Nal Se Jal, that is famous Jal Jeevan Mission. Then National Water Mission, the NMCG National Namami Gange project, like Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Swachh Bharat Mission, like ATAL Mission for Regeneration and Urban Transformation, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Smart Cities Mission. So all these various missions and goals have been created for one way or the other for achieving the sustainable development goal. To ensure the effective water governance, naturally we have started the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Right? Earlier it was known as the Ministry of Water Resources, or Ministry of Water Resources and Regeneration. Now it is combined this with the water power and the water related issues under the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which is created to address the various interrelated issues. Then we should also keep in mind that the water is needed for the different purposes, like the survival of the living beings, for the development and for progression of the civilization. And it is a famous saying that most of the civilizations have developed on the banks of some water body, because we need the water for food, water for drinking, water for energy, so water for environment, water for health. All those issues are there. That's why it is important for the survival of the mankind. We know that even the water quality is one of the major issues. It has been estimated that 80% of all disease and over 1/3 of the deaths in developing countries are water related, as well as on an average, as much as 1/10 of each person's productive time is lost to water related problems. Right? So most of the time we are having in the various states the department like the public health department. Some states have the irrigation and public health department. Right? So like that, the water related disease or the sickness of the water bodies, or you can say the pollution of the water bodies, that also is another issue. Like water and food security, providing energy security with healthy environment to all the living beings is a fundamental duty of any government. So we the people expect from the government that they will make the arrangements in such a way so that we can have the water and food security as well as the energy security. So this energy security is that depends upon the demand and the supply, because demand is not known for surety. The customers are there or the consumers are there. They need the power as and when they have the requirement. Whereas the supply cannot be in the as per your requirements. Right? So we have to think of the energy security, and for that purpose, then naturally we need the storages also, and energy storage is difficult to. Then related with these, the healthy environment is also very important. How to maintain the environment or how to create the healthy environment, that also is very important related issue. So overall, basically it is a societal commitment which should look for the water, food, energy along with the healthy environment. So these three securities, the water security, food security, energy security and the healthy environment, that is very important for our survival. If you slightly go into technicalities of the sustainable development goal, then in the sustainable development goal, basically sustainability means that we should be able to satisfy the requirements of the three pillars like the society, economics as well as the environment. That if you look into that, the social aspect, economic aspect as well as the environmental aspect. If any development which takes care of these three aspects, then we call it as that development as the sustainable. And if any development which is taking care of social and economic, that we call it as the equitable. If it takes care of the economic and environment, then we call it as the viable. And if it takes care of the environmental and the social, then we call it as the bearable. So if you can say in these terms also that any development which is equitable, viable and bearable, that we call it as the sustainable. Right? And naturally these are the minimum acceptable parameters. Sometimes we also take it separately as the technologies also. Right? So in the technologies, the sustainable technologies, we have to look into this aspect. So the technology transfer as well as the innovation. That always the technology will be sustainable if and only if the innovative approach is there. So there has to be some input of the innovation. So if innovation is there in the technology, then only it can sustain. And technology, definitely it should be easy to transfer also. Then only that technology will be sustainable. Then beside this, the what is the meaning of this social angle means that the development should take care of the social progress. How the social progress will take place? That means it should have the stakeholder involvement, it should have the social equity, it should have the employment generation and capacity building, and it should involve the cultural heritage. Then that any development which takes care of these four aspects, then we can say in real term that it is taking care of the social progress. Similarly, for the economic development, we have to think of the infrastructure development, regional economy or the microeconomic efficiency, because the money which we are spending for any development, it should be worth or it should give the output more than the cost. So benefit cost ratio should be more than 1. Right? Then third is the environmental sustainable protection, like it should take care of the biodiversity, it should be dealing with the water and land resources, it should deal with the visual impact and the noise pollution, that should be as minimum as possible. So if you take care of all these aspects, then only you can say that the development is sustainable. Right? Any issue or any concern, any comment about the sustainable development? Then sometimes we interact these different aspects like the society, economic, energy, technology and environment, so that we talk about the sustainable development, and in that we talk about the ecological goods and the services, because services also is very, very important. The environmental services, what type of services you can get from the environment and how these interact, and that's why particularly the recycling and reuse of the waste and how we create the resource from the waste, or how to create wealth from the waste, that also is important. So any development will be sustainable if you take care of the waste also, or if you create the wealth from the waste also. So all type of R's like the recycling, reuse, rehabilitation, regulations, all those things we should be able to take care. Right? So beside this, the sustainable development, nowadays we are also focusing on the clean development mechanism, CDM. Right? So basically, if you are taking care of the clean development mechanism, or then only we can think of the sustainable development. Right? So this is the background of the sustainable development as such. Now I will focus on the water resources of India. I think you people may be from the different backgrounds. Some of you may be knowing about that. Still, I would like to focus some of the issues. Like in India, we have the major source of the water supply or the water as the rainfall. And the 80% of the rainfall in India we get from the Bay of Bengal depressions, and almost 20% from the southwest monsoon from the Arabian Sea. Right? And some aspect, some part comes from the westliers, particularly in the winter, like the December, from the Pakistan, Afghanistan, that the westlier. And the Himalayas plays a major role because that creates the obstruction to the clouds and which causes the rainfall. And some aspect of the flow is from the snow melt, from the snow peaks, that which we have the snow in the Himalayas, so that part is there. So basically the four components are there. One is the four deep, like the depressions, the organographic influences, the snow melt, and the north pole deserts from where we are getting the water. And as far as the distribution of the water is, almost the more than 50% of the water resources in India we have in the Ganges, Brahmaputra and Meghna river basin. The Ganges itself, the various tributaries of the Ganges, and it is having almost 28%. 30% is in the Brahmaputra, Meghna river basin, and rest small amounts from the major other rivers in India, like the independent rivers like Sabarmati, Mahi, Narmada, Tapi, Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, Pinar, like that. Okay. Plus some other tributaries of the various river basins. Right? So non-Ganges rivers you can say. So this is how, from where and how the water is distributed in the various river basins. And in India, normally we say that every 2 months the season changes, that in the, particularly in the lunar system, after every 2 months our months the season. But as a major seasons, if you see that we have the four major seasons. One is the summer during March to May. The another is the monsoon or the rainy season from June to September. Then we have the post-monsoon from October to November. And then we have the winter season from December to February. Right? So each of the season has its own characteristics, the temperature, humidity, and all those meteorological parameters changes in these seasons. And accordingly, the rainfall also changes, because rainfall mostly takes place in the monsoon season or some part in the winter, or some snow melt in the summer season, as well as the demands also changes season to season. Right? So in numbers, let's go through these numbers, that the India's water resources. Our population of India is about 1.4 billion, because that affects our demands and the total demand, etc. The geographical area of India is about 3.29 million kilometers square, which is 7th largest in the world. The average annual precipitation is of the order of 1190 millimeter, varies from 100 to 12,000 millimeter, 100 millimeter in the western part of Rajasthan and 12,000 millimeters in the eastern part, right, near Cherrapunji. Coefficient of variation is 15 to 70, a very large coefficient of variation. The total rainfall hours in India is about 100 hours in a year. Nearly 80% of the annual rainfall takes place only 3 to 4 months, like June to September. The number of rainy days are hardly 80 rainy days. You might have noticed that in a year, not more than 80 rainy days we have. The average annual precipitation received in India is about 4,000 kilometer cube. The average water resources is in India as of today is about 1,400 meter cube per person per year. The critical condition is of the, as per Fulkerson Mark rule, that 1,700 meter cube per person per year. Normally we consider that if the water availability is more than 1,700 meter cube per person per year, then we can say that the sufficient water is available. But if it is less than that, then actually it is the critical conditions, or even less than 1,000, then it becomes a critical conditions or water scarce conditions. The availability of the water, because 4,000 meter cube is the precipitation, the average water availability in India is about 1,000 to 1,400 BCM, billion cubic meter. The total water requirement in India is about 1,180 BCM. So at some places you can think of it is able to meet the water requirement as of today, and some places it is not been able to provide the water resources. It is highly uneven in space and time, right? If you see that from the western part to eastern part, that is varying in space as well as in time. As I mentioned, that during the monsoon season you have the sufficient water, but in the other seasons you are not having sufficient water. That's why the importance of these storages are important. As I mentioned, the Brahmaputra-Barak-Ganga basin has about 60% of the total water resources. Western and southern regions experience severe deficit in the water availability. Therefore, the water storages are required to meet the various demands in space and time. The current live example is the Tehri reservoir. It is taking care of not only the hydropower generation, but also it is taking care of the meeting the requirements for irrigation, for drinking water, for flood control. So all those type of the requirements are taken care of by the storages, and that's why we need these storages across the various rivers, so that we can meet the demands throughout the year. Even you can think of that it is meeting the requirements for drinking water requirements for Delhi also. Right? It is taking care of the irrigation water requirements even up to Agra also. Right? So like that, you can think of that how, and even the floods, that after creation of the Delhi Dam, that we have been able to take care of the various flood events in this basin. Then if you come to the background of the energy, in the morning also we are discussing about this issue of the energy, the affordable and clean energy. That is the key factor in the society's sustainable development. One is the affordable, second is the clean energy. Right? It should not create any other pollution or the other health issues. At the same time, it should be affordable, it should be cheaper. Right? India is third in the total energy consumption. As far as the total energy consumption is concerned, India ranks at number 3. So we require huge quantity of the energy. The per capita consumption in India is about 1255 kilowatt hour for the units, whereas the developed countries are using per capita of the order of 8,000 to 12,000 units per person per year. Right? So we hardly use 100 units per month per person, right? For all purposes. Mind it, this is not only for domestic purpose, but for other purposes, like the clothes which we are wearing. So for the manufacturing of the clothes also, that energy which is required, so that also is contributed to us. Like the shoes which we are wearing, for that also the energy which we are consuming. So like that, all sorts of energy which we are talking about, that is the maximum which we are using is our average, that is the 100 units per person per month. The Government of India target is that 50% renewable energy generation by 2030. That the renewable energy should contribute about 50% of that. As of today, the total installed capacity in India is 425 gigawatt, and we are thinking of that meeting very soon the requirement of 1000 gigawatt. out of the 179 plus gigawatt renewable energy as of today, that is the January 2023 figure which I have taken, about 43%, which is the renewable energy, and the government of India aims at about 500 gigawatt by 2030. In the morning also we were discussing. The contribution of the large hydro is about 47%, the small hydro 4.94 gigawatt, solar 67 gigawatt, wind 42.8 gigawatt, biomass 10.2 gigawatt. That is the fourth largest in the world in terms of the renewable solar and wind energy. Recent times, the solar has gone a very large number, like the 67 gigawatt energy which we have. Even the wind also has gone in a large way, like the 62.8 gigawatt. Right? So it has already crossed, the solar has already crossed the large hydro, and wind is just touching near the large hydro. Right? Because there are certain issues involved in the large hydros. The India's hydropower potential, if you consider that the hydropower potential is of the order of 1,48,700 megawatt, out of which 42,000 megawatt is in operation, 15,000 megawatt under construction, pump storage scheme about 5,000 megawatt constructed, and about 3,000 megawatt under construction. In the developed countries like the USA, Japan, France, Norway and Switzerland, they have exploited more than 80% of their hydropower potential. Right? Whereas in India, if you consider that even the various partners, like the state has 25% share, center has 24% share, and private has 51% share. So one has to think of that we have to increase the share of the center and state for development of the energy. The various issues which are related with the energy are that one is the adequacy of the energy, that we should have the adequate power energy which is available. Second is the reliable and quality, because sometimes the quality of the power is poor and it may create the problem for the various appliances, and the reliability of the power is not there, so that is the issue. Then the optimal cost, the cost should be as minimum as possible, or the optimal cost should be there with commercial viability for so we have to think of those issues. Then to achieve these issues, we have to adopt various strategies for power generation, for power transmission, for distribution, for regulation, for conservation and communication. So these are the various issues. At every stage we have to focus on that, so that we can have the commercially viable power, the reliable and quality power, and adequate power supply for different stages. This is the another how historically we have changed, that in 1947 to 48 only the total 1362 megawatt power was there, out of which hydro was 508 megawatt, and that was contribution about 37%, and it has gone up to, like in September 23, it is the total power which is being generated in India is 4,25,406 megawatt, out of which 51,833 is large and small hydropower. So total contribution is almost 12%. So from 37% it has gone to 51, 46, 40, 29, 24, 23, 22, 16, 13 and 12. So it is going down and down. So we have to think of how we can increase the hydropower contributions in the energy. No doubt that because of the solar and wind and other biomass energy, or the different type of energy, like hydrogen is now entering in a big way for the energy generation, that share is going down. But still, as a part of the renewable energy, that hydropower plays an important role, because we are reducing the contributions of the coal-based or the fossil fuel-based energy generation to be reduced. Because in the time to come, naturally the thermal power plants will go out, right? Because of the various pollution issues. Like this is the map in the graphical way that the various hydropower plants in the Indian Himalayan region as well as the non-Himalayan region. And you will notice that in the non-Himalayan region, the hydropower has been developed to a great extent. Almost 80 to 90% potential have been generated, whereas in the still lot of potential is there in the Himalayan region. The potential is there, but still there is a scope for the development of the hydropower development in the Himalayan region. So we have to think of that.
So in your previous slide, you were talking about that we have only 12%. September 2023, we had just only 12% share. Don't you think that climate change is a major factor? Because of climate change, our rivers are shrinking. We don't have we have the scarcity of water. So
there are several issues, and that we shall be coming to that point also. That what you are saying is that the reasons for the reduction in the hydropower contribution towards the total energy generation.
Glacial retreat.
One reason which you are mentioning is for the climate change. Climate change, no doubt, it changes. Because of that, there is an impact will be on the temperature. The temperature rise will be there. Second is on the rainfall variability. Right? So what you are mentioning is that the snow melt or the temperature rise, that the water distribution across the season, that changes. Because the rainfall intensity will change. It has been noticed that it may not be changing the overall quantity of the rainfall, but it is the distribution of the rainfall will get changed because of the climate change. Because some extremes may be there, like heavy intensity of the rainfall or the drought seasons. Or sometimes you might have noticed that some people are contributing towards like the cloudburst events. The cloudburst events have increased more. Right? So because of that, what is cloudburst? That is the heavy intensity, more than 100 millimeter per hour rainfall is there. So that type of events has increased. So that has increased, that is causing the flooding events. Flooding events, the water which we are getting during flood, that water we are not being able to use that water. Right? So that's why the climate change is changing the availability of the water in space and time. That's why that in the very beginning slide I mentioned that the variability is more in space and time. That's why we need more and more storages. Right? So if we can create more and more storages and then use that water for the different purpose, then it is good. Right? That's why the more and more storages are required. But again, with these storages, what are the different issues? Because of that, we are not being able to create these storages. Nowadays, creating the storage in India is very difficult. If you think of that, creating the dam like Tehri, if you think of such dam, another dam in India, it will be very difficult. And even for Tehri also, that it has taken almost more than 50 years to construct that one. Right? So that's why instead of storage, then we have gone for the run of the river schemes. So that small ponds or the very small storages we created. Right? Or then even in that also, if we are facing, because most of the time the rivers are getting dried, then we have thought of the pump storage schemes. Right? So like that, the relative advantage and disadvantage we have to think of. Yes, you are right that you have given one reason for as the climate change as one of the reasons, but it is not the only reason. There can be several other reasons also. Right? So we may also discuss those issues. But that is very valid that this also is one of the reasons. But as far as the reduction in the percentage is concerned, the 12% as compared to 37 or 51% here, at that time, although the hydropower generation has increased, if you notice from 508 to 51,000, right?
Demand also increased.
But the total contribution, the total energy generation has also increased. Hydro has not increased the same ratio as in terms of the other. For example, here it was 1500. So 1500 to 4,25,000 the total energy capacity.
Population and demand is also increased. That's why the share.
Demand is we are only talking about the generation part, right? So demand is the another issue. But here, if you see this slide, the total generation has increased from 1500 to 4,25,000. So if you see the per decade slope, the energy addition, that slope is much steeper as compared to this slope. Here only 500 to 51,000. Right? So like that, it is 100 times, and that has gone to, you can imagine that 1500 to 4,25,000 that has gone. So it has not gone increased in the same ratio as that of the total energy.
So what
And similarly in the ratio of the demand, because demand has also increased.
What are the regions, sir?
What are the
Regions, sir. Regions.
regions?
Yeah.
Obviously, that regions, our population has increased up to 1.4 billion. Our demand has increased a lot. Urbanization has taken place a lot, right? Our industrialization has increased a lot. So our demands has increased because of the various regions like the population growth, urbanization, industrialization, the pollutions, and all those things. And accordingly, that as the demand increases, the generation will also increase.
Sir,
The another issue is that
right now policy shift is also one of the reasons.
yes, I fully agree with that one. That is the another issue that beside the climate change, the policy which we are mentioning, that the water governance issues have changed.
And
Lot of
focusing
change.
on the renewables are there.
That aspect is also there. That's why in the beginning, why I have considered that the three aspects